Sit back down and shut your trap. It's time for
Keeping It Sports with them three.
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Well, I'll need some beer.
Are you ready?
You have to ask me nicely.
Come on now, don't be bashful.
Are you ready? Are you ready for
Place for the best sports talk and news surrounding each league.
I can prove it with my usual flawless logic.
Hey man, this time we're gonna do it my way.
What's your name again?
And now, here's your host, M3, Mike Rozansky. Coming to you from Cherry Hill, New Jersey. It's time for Keeping It Sports with M3, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Good afternoon, everyone. I am, of course, your host, Mike M3 Rozansky, coming to you here on this Monday, the 20th day of April. For those of you out there who are celebrating a holiday today, I wish all the best to you. I hope that you stay safe. Hope you don't do anything foolish and are within the confines of your home and not around a steering wheel or anything that could put anyone else in any form of danger if you happen to be celebrating 420 today. For the rest of us who are not getting high, not puff giving, if you want to refer to it as that, hope you're all off to a great start in your day, great start of your week. If you're viewing this for the first time ever, we're streaming it today on YouTube. Not sure how this is going to go. This could completely blow up in my face. No one could be watching it right now saying, who's that schmuck with the backwards hat? A whole bunch of nonsense could be going on. Hell, even dealing with internet connection as we try to record this. But to anyone who is either watching or listening right now, I appreciate you and will never not stop appreciating those who take the time out to support this podcast every week, which you can find not just on streaming, but as well, remember, you can find it on Spotify. You can find it on Podbean.com. Find the links to it on social media through Instagram at Keeping It Sports with M3, as well as on Twitter at Keeping It Sports. Also can find me on Facebook under my name, Mike Rozansky. Can find the podcast in so many different places. Hope you spread the word about it if you happen to like what you are seeing and listening to today, if it is your first time. And a lot of things I'm going to talk about today. Give you some thoughts on the NBA playoffs, which have just gotten started, of course. Mixing some thoughts on the NFL draft, which finally is coming up this Thursday. I know a lot of us can't wait for that day to finally come. Mixing some thoughts on the Yankees and the Mets, especially, who are going through an 11-game losing streak right now. But as I mentioned before, we just got started with the NBA playoffs over the weekend. And there's not much of a conclusion you can draw after just one game. I, as someone who doesn't have a team to root for in this playoffs, because my team, the Nets, traditionally suck, just hope that we get long, extended series, we get drama, because it feels like there's been this just fait accompli on what we're going to get for the second round of the playoffs. You see so many of these people on television or talking on radio channels or in podcasts or on social media, talking about the second round series already. And I don't know, as an outside neutral observer, I'm like, I don't want to be sitting here breaking down the second round of the postseason while we've still got the first round going on. Yeah, we know that there's underdogs in each series and decisive underdogs in most of these series, but you like to see a little bit of drama. The best part of sports is the unexpected. It's something that we did not see coming actually happening here. And the only bit of drama we had coming out of this past weekend was the Detroit Pistons dropping game one of their series against the Orlando Magic. And there's really no excuse for it. You really can't say injuries or time off being a problem because you're playing a Magic team that had to play 2 do-or-die games over this past week, and you have Cade Cunningham back. So there was really no excuse, and you can't use the excuse of playoff experience versus no playoff experience because the Pistons were in the playoffs last year. This Magic team, this is really their first ride. This is their first rodeo, their first chance at the dance here, especially with this group and acquiring Desmond Bane. It's Pablo Banchero's first chance to really have the spotlight upon himself. And for him and his guys to go out there and understand the assignment, where seemingly it was Cade Cunningham going out there and dragging his team, kicking and screaming for most of the game. And really, that's what it felt like watching this game. There were a couple of times where the Pistons went on runs, but every time they went on a run, the Magic answered. The Magic said, all right, you may have tied us up, but we're not letting you take the lead here. Now, it's one game. Hopefully, for the Pistons' sake, this is a wake-up call. But for a lot of these teams in the Eastern Conference, especially the New York Knicks, they're saying, yes, let's see more of this. Let's have more of this where we don't have to deal with the Detroit Pistons potentially in the second round. Because the Pistons kicked the Knicks' ass every single time these teams met up over the course of the regular season. So they would like to have all possibilities of avoiding the Pistons if at all possible. But before they can even think about a potential matchup with the Pistons, matchup with the Celtics, they got to get through the Atlanta Hawks. And I said it last week here, I will say it again. To me, if this series goes beyond 5 games, then something seriously went wrong, whether it be an injury or the team not being focused. They came out right from the get-go on Saturday evening and said, hey, no screwing around here. We're coming out and we're going to put pedal to the metal against this Hawks team, a Hawk team that is without their center, Jack Landale, who you know now you're going to have a humongous advantage inside with a smaller team going up against Towns and Mitchell Robinson. Well, you don't like to see it where it's one star dominates the first half, the other star dominates the second half. You more so want to see a mix and a gelling together of these two guys. Jalen Brunson came out and set an incredible tone early on, made his first 6 shots, put up 19 points in the first quarter. And even despite what the score shows here, there was never a time where you watched this game and you felt like the Hawks had a chance. And that the Garden was rocking, the Garden was ready to go for this game. And all of the Knicks, from your starting 5 to your bench crew, they understood the assignment here. Yeah, one game, but you want to come out and set a good tone. You want to come out and show that you're the dominant, superior team. I keep that going into tonight. You've got home court advantage in this series. You want this team, even despite how well they've played since the All-Star break, to go back home to Atlanta on Thursday night and feel demoralized, feel like they have no shot, put pressure on them and take control of this series. Because when you fool around and let an underdog hang around and think they have a chance in a series, that's when foolish things can start happening. That's when things that potentially could hurt not just your chances of winning this series, but also winning the entire playoffs can happen, whether it be an unforeseen injury, especially in the case of Mitchell Robinson. Or you give a underdog a little bit of motivation, have a little sliver of hope, see that crack in the door open, like, all right, we'll step on through. We've seen teams like this who should not even be on the floor with another opposition do some weird things in the postseason before. Nothing to me will really ever top that, Steven Jackson, Baron Davis-led Golden State Warriors team who once upon a time defeated Dirk and the Mavs, who were the 1 seed, and Dirk won the league MVP that year. But as I said, you don't want to fool around with these teams, especially a team that is lacking their center and doesn't have that real, true, experienced number one guy leading the way. With my concern about this first round being lackluster, even despite the Pistons losing yesterday, you saw what the Celtics did to the 76ers. Who knows if Joel Embiid is going to play at all for the Sixers. And even if he does play, he's probably good for a game at best against this Celtic team who has been on fire since Tatum returned from his torn Achilles injury. They look like they're going to blow by the Sixers pretty quickly. The Cavaliers got the team that most Knicks fans were hoping to play in the first round, the Raptors. And even though James Harden's postseason track record is really spotty, him and Donovan Mitchell understood the assignment. They got a great game out of Max Strus off the bench. So all of these teams that you're worried about being your top competition to come out of the East, they've either gotten off to good starts in their series or look like they're going to run through their series rather quickly, unless there's that, as I said, unforeseen injury. You don't want to play around here. You don't want to play any games and screw around, and then all of a sudden you're looking up and you're playing a game 6 or, God forbid, a game 7 where you never know what can happen in those kind of scenarios. Get this series done as quick as possible so that you give your guys a little bit of rest time, especially in the case of, I know he's not playing and logging big minutes, but Mitchell Robinson, we know, is an injury concern. Hell, you just got back Deuce McBride after missing essentially 3 months to an injury. So get these guys off their feet, get them a little bit of time off before what you expect the real wars to begin in this postseason, as we expect the Knicks to see the Celtics in the next round. We expect, if the Knicks get by them, to see the Pistons or the Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals. And then if you can get by that, you take your best shot with whatever threat comes out of the Western Conference. This should be, nothing in life is easy. Nothing in life is just a given. But this series should be a breeze of, at most, a 5-game series. And they've gotten off to a great start. Don't let that great start get away from you. Don't give this team any hope or any chance of coming back and making this any lengthy kind of series. All right, a lot I want to get to throughout this podcast, mixing some baseball coming up with the losing streak that the Mets are on currently, and then some things going on off the field for the Yankees. There was a big trade that took place over the weekend in the NFL. Talk about how that impacts the draft. Also give some thoughts on the Western Conference postseason in the NBA coming up. So a lot I want to get to over the next about 40 minutes or so here. Glad you guys could join me this week. And as I tell you each and every single week at this time, please sit back, relax, help put your feet up if you feel like it, and continue keeping it sports with M3.
I'll be back.
Can't complain too much about a 5-2 homestand by the Yankees. I mean, you'd like to go better than a 4-game split against the Angels. And let's be honest, if we're being fair here, Yankees probably should have been swept by the Angels in that series What helped is the fact that the Angels employ reliever Jordan Romano, and as we've seen over the years, whether it be when it was the Blue Jays, the Phillies, or the Angels, to say it kindly, the Yankees have had their way with that guy and made life incredibly miserable with him. Once again, with Grisham having a 2-run homer off of him on Monday night to tie the game before the eventual walk-off wild pitch. Then you have the big hit by Caballero to win Wednesday's game after that gift when Peraza just let the ball fall in front of him. With how bad the pitching was in some of those games, the Yankees were lucky to come out of that series with 2 wins. And the one positive, if you're not a Yankee fan, you take from that, we were reminded once again how great Mike Trout is. If we even needed reminders, and with all the injuries he's had, he's essentially missed 3 seasons worth of baseball, and we would be talking about him as a GOAT if not for those injuries. Hell, he's starting to be very reminiscent for this generation of what Ken Griffey Jr. was of the previous generation, where you see all of this immense talent he has. But then as he starts to get into his later 20s and now in his 30s, injuries start cropping up, robbing him of playing time, robbing us of seeing greatness, and robbing him of putting up some truly immortal numbers. And his numbers are Hall of Fame worthy as they are, but we'd be talking about a guy that be challenging close to 600 home runs by the time it's all said and done, if not for these injuries. And no, he's over 400 home runs, but he's had a remarkable run, and it's unfortunate for him that the Angels have been an awful baseball team around him, and he's not gotten any cracks at the postseason outside of his rookie season. But that was one bright spot for baseball, unless you were a Yankee fan watching that. They handled business over the weekend against the Royals. Surprised how bad the Royals pitching staff has been, especially yesterday watching Cole Reagans essentially walk the ballpark in between giving up laser shots to Judge and Ben Rice. And speaking of Ben Rice, a little bit of a public service announcement to the Yankees, especially the Yankees front office. For the love of God, play this kid every day. I mean, I don't care whether it's a lefty, righty, switch pitcher on the mound. There is no platoon split when it comes to this guy. I said it during spring training. I'll say it again. The platoon should not be Ben Rice versus Paul Goldschmidt. It should be between Paul Goldschmidt and Austin Wells. Austin Wells can't hit left-handed pitching. On the days that there's lefties out there, or you want to get Goldschmidt in the lineup, put Ben Rice behind the plate and have him catch. You had him catch some in spring training. You let him catch last year. And while he'll never be a platinum glove catcher, he wasn't awful. He wasn't embarrassing himself. This guy is one of the Yankees' better hitters. He's a guy that could be a cornerstone piece of this lineup for years to come. And have games without him in the lineup is ridiculous to me. Hell, we saw it yesterday. I think you should leave him in the leadoff spot and let's see how things roll here. And Grisham's not done a lot to start off this season. He's walked a bunch. But outside of that 2-homer game against the Angels last week, he's provided no productivity in front of Judge and Bellinger in this lineup. So why not try it with Rice and see how you can roll with it? Now, we're a little over 20 games into the season right now. Yankees are 13-9. It's a solid start to the year. And think about it. They haven't even gotten a game pitched by Carlos Rodon yet, who's supposed to start his rehab assignment this week, or Garrett Cole, who just started off his rehab assignment this past Friday. And hopefully they keep the rest of the pitching staff healthy. Those guys get back. They could start to slide some of these guys, whether it be Heel or Weathers, over to the bullpen and help what has been, to me, the most concerning part of this team so far this season. you don't want to go nuts. You don't want to go crazy because it's the month of April. We still got so much time left in the season. And even as much as that losing streak the Yankees went on a week ago when they lost 5 games in a row, kind of, bringing things down after the high of highs they were on to start the season, they're still in a good place at 13-9 at the top of their division. Whereas you look across town and there are the New York Mets, who have now lost 11 games in a row and are playing some really shitty baseball. A lot of fans would call in to their local radio shows or podcasts or go on social media saying, oh, the team looks like a mess, looks unmotivated. Well, you're going to look unmotivated when you're not hitting, when you're not scoring runs. And you look at this 11-game losing streak, they are getting outscored 62-19. You're not going to win many games when you score 19 runs over an 11-game span. They're only hitting $145 with runners in scoring position. Yes, you're without Juan Soto. I get it. But you still have plenty of talent on this team, even with having a rookie play right field, where you should not be getting outscored by 40-plus runs in an 11-game span. It's one thing going up against the Dodgers, but the Dodgers didn't bludgeon you in all of those games. You had one game where Rozansky just went out there and mowed through that lineup like they were standing still. A rookie who got through 8 innings on 90 pitches. Then you have a pitcher's duel between Nolan McLean and Yamamoto, where it's a 1-1 going into the 8th inning, and the Mets could not get a clutch hit. Couldn't get any offense going after Lindor's leadoff homer. I think they went about another 4 or 5 innings there before even getting another base runner in that game. The only game of that series that was truly a blowout was the Thursday game, and you were even in that until Devin Williams made a mess of things with the grand slam in the 8th inning. Yes, Soto's phenomenal, but you still have Lindor. You have Bichette, who's off to an awful start. Now you've lost Polanco for a little bit to the IL. You're getting nothing out of some of these young infielders, whether it be Beatty or Vientos. What good is this good pitching that you're getting from everybody that's not named Kodai Senga the last 2 times through if you're not going to score any runs? And yesterday, another example of that. You get good pitching, even with them going with the opener nonsense of starting Tobias Myers before going to Peterson out of the bullpen. The pen pitched great up until Devin Williams gave up the tying run in the 9th inning, leading you to now coming back to Citi Field with a lot of unrestlessness amongst this fan base, a lot of unrestlessness probably in that clubhouse. Guys probably looking around saying to themselves, what the hell is going on here? Now, I'm not going to make too big of a deal of this stat of how only 3 teams in the division era, that being since 1969, have made the postseason after a double-digit losing streak, because a couple of those were prior to the current playoff format where you have 3 division winners and 3 wild card teams. 20 years ago, when it was 3 division winners and 1 wild card, then yeah, maybe I hold some credence to that. But we just saw a team last year in the Cleveland Guardians lose double-digit games in a season and still make the postseason. I remember they were dealing with all that nonsense with 2 of their pitchers, including their closer, facing a gambling scandal. So they were able to overcome that. If they can overcome that, then surely the Mets should be able to overcome this in April when they still haven't played any games against their division. You've got the Phillies who are not playing well. Yes, the Braves have jumped out to a lead in the division, but they've dealt with some pitching injuries early on. And the Nats and Marlins, maybe the Marlins might be better than we thought they were going to be coming into this season, but the Nats just seem like they're a forever rebuilding franchise. So there is still time, but you need to start winning some games, and you're going to get that opportunity coming up this week when you come home and play a team that has been typically a doormat to New York baseball, that being the Minnesota Twins. So I'm not going to get all hot and bothered yet. No, it's not a good sign ever losing 11 games in a row. And the Mets, it's not even like you could say they're just unlucky. They've just played bad baseball, had no offense, and their bullpen has been hit or miss at the back end with Williams and Weaver. But they've pitched in the starting rotation outside of Senga well enough to win games. They're just not getting enough run support. And you hope with seeing a bad Twins team coming up in the next couple of days, and with Nolan McLean starting things off, that could get things going. Because, we got the draft coming up this coming Thursday. Then we've got game 3 for the Knicks. You've also got Yankees, Red Sox that night. You don't want where we're going to have this cornucopia of New York sports events with the Jets and Giants both having 2 picks in the top 16 of the first round of the draft. The Yankees playing the Red Sox with Cam Slitler on the mound. And the Knicks playing game 3 in Atlanta of their first round series. You don't want it being where there's all of this right to celebrate happiness, and then there's just the Mets, and they're in the midst of a 13-game losing streak. You'd like to get this done with and not have to hear about it anymore. And hopefully, when that win does come with McLean pitching tonight, you don't have any ridiculous tweets from the owner popping up, because then you start looking like a clown. You start looking like Woody Johnson if you're Steve Cohen, where you're only there for the good moments, and you want to put out ridiculous tweets like he put out last Wednesday, where he's like, oh, well, we tried. Let's look at the bright spots here of another loss with McLean on the mound. No, that kind of nonsense just gets you laughed about, gets people pointing the finger at you, and makes you look like a joke. And hopefully he learns his lesson from that. And hopefully he doesn't try to butt in. This is not his mess that he created. Hell, I don't even think it's the manager's mess. This is the GM's mess. He made a lot of these moves during the offseason, brought in what you thought was going to be a big ace for this rotation in Freddie Peralta. The manager didn't trust him in a big spot on Saturday, and that blew up in their face. He moved on from some fan favorites this offseason. I know Alonso hasn't gotten off to a great start. Nimmo has. And the guys that he's replaced him with have not gotten the job done. So there's no direct finger pointing that should be done at Mendoza. It should be more so at the GM and the players that he has chosen to bring in here that have not gotten the job done. And hopefully for the Mets' sake, they can start to get things going, because as it's been said before, you can't win a title in April, but things can get late very, very early, and things can start to get ugly, especially with this franchise, sooner rather than later.
I'll be back.
Some people just can't help themselves with having attention drawn upon themselves. They want to have more of it. They crave it. They just can't get enough of themselves. And for those of you who are either new to watching or listening to this podcast for the first time here on YouTube, I am not a LeBron James hater. I don't consider him the GOAT. That to me is still Michael Jordan. But I don't view that as hating by saying he's the second best basketball player of all time. But I do get annoyed when it comes to some of his off the court stuff where he tries to, I guess, be cute and think that he's not drawing attention upon himself, but then does foolish stuff like putting patches on his jersey for accomplishments or the number of games played or seasons played. And now, on the midst of the start of his series against the Rockets in the first round, where for the first time in a couple of years, they get to avoid the play-in, a report came out through The Athletic last week where sources close to LeBron James are saying he does not want a retirement tour. He still hasn't made up his decision whether this will be his final season or not, but he does not want a retirement tour. And to that, I say, bull effing shit. This is a guy that put a patch on his jersey for his 23rd season in the NBA, had a game stopped when he passed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the most points scored in league history. I know it was almost 20 years ago, but he had a TV special to announce when he was leaving the Cleveland Cavaliers the first time to go to the Miami Heat. This is the guy that does nothing without drawing attention upon himself. In some ways, you give him credit because the stars prior to him and around him in this social media era never faced this kind of scrutiny. And he faced more scrutiny than anybody in the sports world over the last 20 years as social media began becoming popular and expanding day by day, year by year, to the point where we know his every movement, everything he does in life. And he's handled that with class, but at the same time, he has done some things that really make him look dopey. And for anyone out there to think that he doesn't want a retirement tour, please, he's saying this because he's about to hit free agency. It's going to be unrestricted free agency for the first time really in his career. So he's going to have his choice of where to go without that team having to do a sign and trade, or without that team having to trade away players to clear up a spot on their roster, whether it be returning to the Lakers or going back to the Cavaliers one final time. But trust me, it's not going to be a situation like what it was with Tim Duncan, where on some random Tuesday afternoon, all of a sudden a press release comes out saying that, hey, I'm retired. Thanks for all the love over the last 20 plus years in the NBA. No, we're going to know. He's going to tell us in a summer leading into that final season. Whether he likes it or not, we're not foolish to believe this report. Now, LeBron is right now trying to avoid his 23rd season in the NBA from ending anytime soon, as he's got a first-round series against the Rockets, where one of the rare times that you're seeing a 4 seed come into the first round viewed as the significant underdog in the series, with them being without Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, at least to start the series. I don't think we're going to see Austin Reeves at all in this series. They have not ruled out Luka Doncic, especially after he flew overseas to Spain and had some kind of procedure done to kind of expedite the recovery process. But it did even out the playing field a little bit when at tip-off on Saturday night, we found out the Rockets were going to be without Kevin Durant after he bruised his right knee in practice last week. And from there, with no Kevin Durant in the mix of things here, the Lakers' defense was what shined in this game. Hoist up as many shots as the Rockets did, about 30 shots less, but they were able to shoot 60% from the field and were able to keep this Rockets offense relatively quiet, even despite 5 3-pointers from Reed Shepherd in place of Kevin Durant. this Rockets team, they look like lost puppies out there without their lead alpha dog. And you had no one that really stepped up and said, all right, no KD, I'm going to lead the way. I'm going to be the one that keeps us in this game. Even despite it being a single-digit game for the most part here, you're watching how poorly they're shooting from the field, and that they were having opportunity after opportunity. And the Lakers let up 21 more offensive rebounds to this Rockets squad. And you're figuring with LeBron James's age, with him not having a real number two out there, and the inconsistencies that you've seen from DeAndre Ayton, even without KD, this Rocket team would have a chance. I don't think anyone expected Luke Kennard to come out of nowhere and have 27 points. And then when you're going to shoot 37% from the field, that's not going to win you many games. Now, I hope Kevin Durant comes back, hope Luka comes back throughout this series, because this series in the first round of the Western Conference is really the only chance we have of having a competitive first round series. You saw the Thunder wipe the floor of the Suns in game one yesterday, even with how physical the Suns tried to make this. And that's really the only way they're going to have a chance to win this game. See, you weren't going to expect for Jalen Green to continue on what he did in the play-in tournament games by having 35 points each night. They're going to have to muck things up. You're going to have some of the old school dirtiness of a Dylan Brooks rear its ugly head for the Suns to have any chance of being competitive against this Thunder team. Now, everyone is making a big deal over it being Victor Wembanyama's first time in the postseason, and I got no reason to believe that he isn't going to show out. I mean, he put up 35 in his first playoff game against the Portland Trailblazers yesterday. It's fortunate for them that they get to go up against another young team. But my thing with the Spurs is I'm very much old school in my belief that you need to learn how to win. You need to experience failure. You need to experience the pain and agony of losing a playoff series before you run the gauntlet of winning and getting to even a conference finals. And they've put themselves in a position where in order to get out of the West, they're going to have to see both the Nuggets and the Thunder. There's not going to be, we'll avoid both of them till the conference finals because you'll see the Nuggets next round if they get past the Timberwolves. And then you're likely going to have to go through Oklahoma City, who's going to have as easy a path through this Western Conference that we've ever seen a one seed have when you consider they're going to run right through the Phoenix Suns. Then you've got two beaten up teams in the Rockets and the Lakers in the second round, depending on KD's health and whether Luka can come back at some point. So there's going to be no avoiding those inevitabilities of the Nuggets in the second round or the Thunder in the Western Conference Final. This Nuggets team, they're going to be on a mission here in this postseason as they felt they let one get away last year. They felt that whoever won between them and the Thunder, that was going to be not just the representative out of the West, but that was going to ultimately be the NBA champion. And they failed in a Game 7. You got to believe that Game 7 loss has stuck in Jokic and Murray's craw for a year now. And they've got a healthy squad going up against a somewhat hobbled Anthony Edwards and a Minnesota Timberwolves team that is lacking that true, consistent number two guy. And you never know what you're getting from Julius Randle on any given night. So that is really the drama that you look at in this Western Conference. What is going to be the health of the Rockets and the Lakers? And how are the Spurs going to handle the litmus test that is going through both the Nuggets and the Thunder if they want to reach their first NBA Finals in the Victor Wembanyama era? Quite frankly, even as great as Wembanyama is, I don't think they can do that. But ladies and gentlemen, that's a great thing about sports. We see crazy, wild things all the time, and you never know what to expect in any postseason. Inevitabilities sometimes aren't as inevitable as we might think they are.
I'll be back.
I, for one, can't wait for this coming Thursday with the NFL draft. And it's not because of the fact that both the Jets and now the Giants, who I'll get to in a few moments, have 2 first-round picks each in the first 16 picks of this year's draft. It's just this process every year becomes exhausting and daunting for us fans. And every single day, there's coverage breaking down players leading into the draft from the time the Super Bowl ends to the moment that first pick is announced. Week by week, you're seeing these guys do their mock drafts and who's rising, who's falling in draft, breaking down everything to a fine powder, even bringing up stuff that has nothing to do with the on-field player. And we've seen at times in some of these interviews where they'll bring up somebody's family background and whatnot. I remember that was a big thing when Des Bryant got drafted. Like, enough already. How much draft coverage can you do? And now where we're in an era where the draft is 3 days long, starting with the first round on Thursday night, it can become a bit exhausting. And that's even including when you have off-field drama, whether it be the future of Aaron Rodgers or as what's going to become a big story as soon as this draft is done, the future of A.J. Brown, which ESPN was reporting this morning that it's all but a foregone conclusion that A.J. Brown is going to be traded after the June 1st deadline, where it won't be as much of a cap hit for the Philadelphia Eagles. A lot of people have seen this coming for a long time. I just looked at it as a situation where you had multiple over-the-top personalities in one room, and they were able to make it work last year when winning the Super Bowl. But this past season, I don't know whether it's Kellen Moore leaving and having another change at offensive coordinator and the play calling. I don't know if there was some kind of infighting between Jalen Hurts and the head coach that seeped down between the players on this team, or A.J. Brown and the head coach, or even A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. I mean, they made a big deal of that throughout the season, how these guys wouldn't even sit near each other on the bench, and they used to be close friends when Brown first came to Philadelphia. But all year long, something was off with this team that seemed like it was beyond just Super Bowl hangover. We see the reports. We see that the front runner to get him is going to be the New England Patriots, reuniting with his former head coach, Mike Vrabel, which they could desperately use a number one on that team to help take Drake May to the next level. And doing this trade after June 1st, it will not get you any capital in this year's draft, but should definitely get you a first rounder next year and put the Patriots in a position where they can continue to contend in the AFC, an AFC that you have seen the Broncos make upgrades. You've seen the Buffalo Bills make upgrades. You've seen the Baltimore Ravens make upgrades. Hell, now over this weekend, you've even seen the Cincinnati Bengals make an upgrade. And I got to be fair and call this an upgrade, even for as much as I don't like the player, even for as much as I think this player is one big pain in the ass. But the New York Giants Dexter Lawrence saga reached its conclusion on Saturday night as the Giants traded Lawrence to the Cincinnati Bengals for a package that even I was surprised that they were able to get. I mean, you really can't even call it a package. It's one pick. But they secured the 10th overall pick in this year's draft, showing that the Bengals didn't feel like they could get a game changer at that 10th pick, thinking that a lot of the guys that are going to be game changers on defense, which has been their focus this offseason through adding edge rushers, whether it be Boy Mafe, adding Jonathan Allen on that defensive line, even adding Brian Cook in the secondary. But they need what they will believe will be a game changer on that defense. And say what you want about Dexter Lawrence. I've said plenty of things about him over the last several weeks and months, especially coming off of the bad season he's had. This guy is a multi-time Pro Bowler, multi-time second-team All-Pro player. And yeah, his season was awful last year. He did not earn the right to be demanding an upgrade in his salary, but the Giants were left in a very awkward spot. They were put in an awful place where he's demanding a trade or a pay raise 2 weeks before the NFL draft. And any Giant fan out there that is unhappy about this return, you got to remember, these teams have already done their homework leading up to this draft. They're not going to be trading humongous draft capital from this year and next year's draft, especially for a guy that, even as talented as he's been in the past, he has no guaranteed money left on his contract. He had an injury over a year and a half ago and is coming off a bad season, a season in which he had only a half sack. That's a half sack more than you and I had, and we didn't play games. And a season where he was clearly out of shape, was disgruntled in the Giants' locker room. And with a new sheriff in town in John Harbaugh, he said, enough. I told you guys from the beginning, he was not going to put up with Dexter Lawrence nonsense. It was going to be his way or the highway. Well, guess what? It's the highway for Dexter Lawrence. Now, he does get a bit of a pay raise here as they added 1 year, $28 million on to his contract when they didn't have to do that. They could have just said, hey, you play on the remaining 2 years of your deal and we'll maybe talk about it next off season. But this is the sign of a desperate team. And desperate teams do some weird things. Whether it be last year, the Colts giving up 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner, when even as the most diehard of diehard Jet fans, I could tell you this right now, he was not worth a first-round pick, let alone 2 first-round picks at the time he was traded. Or the Jets getting a second-round pick this year and a first-round pick next year for Quinn Williams. And the Giant fans will say, well, wait a minute. Dexter Lawrence is viewed around the league as a somewhat better player than Quinn Williams. Why didn't we get 2 draft picks like that? Well, you know where you're drafting with this 10th overall pick. We don't know where that first-round pick from the Cowboys for Quinn Williams is going to end up, as that's in next year's draft. The Cowboys could either be god-awful and that pick be a gold mine, or they could be a contending team and that pick's in the late 20s. So you never know when you're getting a draft pick in the drafts beyond this year. So you should consider yourself very fortunate that a team traded you the 10th overall pick, giving you 2 picks in the top 10. That's even more of a gold mine than what the Jets have, drafting at 2 and 16. Because based on what I'm seeing, there's a feeling that one of the 2 players that the Giants covet, especially Sonny Styles, is going to be available for the Giants at number 5 overall. There's also a feeling that Caleb Downs, someone who at the beginning of the draft process was thought to be a top 5 or 6 pick, could be there at 10. So can you imagine if both of the guys that would fit immediate needs for this Giants defense, be impact players from day one, are available for you guys there at 5 and 10. And hell, even if you're only able to say get Styles at 5 and Downs either is drafted by, say, the Chiefs at 9 or someone trades up in the first round and gets him before you, you're still in a position where one of the wide receivers, such as Cardell Tate or Lemon out of UFC, are there for you to take the tag team partner for Malik Neighbors, and then you have a 1-2 punch at wide receiver to set up this offense and make things even easier for Jackson Dart going into what will be his first full season as the Giants' starting quarterback. Or if there's not a player you like there, or if there's a desperate team behind you, you could always trade back with that 10th overall pick. See, this extra first round pick and having 2 in the top 10, it has provided the Giants so many opportunities in this coming draft for Joe Schoen and John Harbaugh to deal with. Although, who knows how much longer Joe Schoen could be in place there. And there were reports last week by Pat Leonard that there could be shakeup in that Giants office after the draft. So Joe Schoen may be the next one out, but John Harbaugh is reshaping this franchise in his vision, especially on the defensive side of things. He didn't want a pain in the ass like Lawrence in there anymore, and he was able to get essentially a steal from the Bengals, getting another top 10 overall draft pick. I don't see how there can be anything but good vibes and an optimistic feel from Giant fans. Right now, that's all we have as New York football fans. Optimism, hope. And hopefully they both, meaning both the Jets and the Giants, are able to hit on these picks, because it's been awful having these quiet Decembers and Januaries around here. I want to get back to seeing NFL playoff football mattering, and games, even despite how ugly the stadium looks, games taking place at MetLife Stadium in the month of January. And both teams can get back there, starting with good weeks coming up in this year's draft. And that, my friends, was Keeping It Sports with M3 for Monday, April 20th, 2026. Everyone, please have a great night. Have a fun, safe, happy, healthy week, especially those of you who are celebrating 420 today. I pray for all of you that you don't do anything stupid. And I'll talk to you guys again, same time next week. Until then, peace.
We have to go. Good night, everybody.
I have had enough of you!
Thank you for all the fun. Thank you. Hey, shut up, will ya?
I don't want to see you, I don't want to hear you, and I don't want to smell you. Now leave. I'll be back.